All right. Again, I'm Tracy Reece. I'm a radiation therapist for about 29 years in Oklahoma. This is the Oklahoma Proton Center where I've been for about 5 years. Today we're going to just give you a brief introduction to the Oklahoma Proton Center. Not meant to be a sales pitch, but kind of talk about how we entered into using SGRT at our center. So we'll explore our treatment rooms, the challenges or benefits that we've had, the installation of AlignRT at our facility, and we'll actually go into a little billing and documentation and who's required to do what. Another picture of our cyclotron. We are a 4-room center, so one cyclotron feeding 4 treatment rooms. We were the 6th Proton Center in the United States, originally a ProCure site. It was built in 2009. IBA is our manufacturer. We have 3 physicists full-time, physicians, 2 part-time physicians, 5 physicists, 4 dosimetrists, 16 radiation therapists, and we treat in protons because we do have a tomotherapy and a Varian Linac, but proton alone, approximately 625 patients a year. The first treatment room to install AlignRT was on our gantry, most flexible machine that we have, meaning we can treat just about any patient that we have, any treatment site. But I can't treat all the patients on that machine, obviously, due to time constraints daily. This system currently uses uniform scanning. We're commissioning our pencil beam right now, so our physicists are very busy. We have the version 2 cameras. You can see the 3 cameras there. A little bit of a challenge compared to a photon. Getting those cameras around to the side of the patient just because of the gantry limitations. We'll talk a little more about that. But the AlignRT system was installed in January 2024, and we treat about 28 to 30 patients a day on this machine. This is our second machine with AlignRT. It's an inclined beam. It can treat at 90 degrees or 30 degrees. Currently uniform scanning. A newer system, so we have the camera version 3. I'll speak to that real quick in case anybody is new to AlignRT. Version 2 cameras emit a red light visible to the patient, and the version 3 are basically, they can't see it. That was installed October 2024, and this room treats primarily breast patients, and we treat 14 to 20 patients in that room. Our other 2 rooms are a fixed beam, 90 degree, and we have another incline room without AlignRT. So only 2 rooms, our gantry and room 3 and room 4 with AlignRT. When we talked about installation and training, they're very efficient. We had a site survey. The engineer came in, looked at our room, camera placement, structurally, what's above these panels that we can attach the cameras to. It literally took one evening for him to say, I know exactly what we need to do. He took that back so that they could get the right camera mounts for us and plan, where they were going to be mounted. The room modifications took about 2 to 3 weeks. In-house engineers and IT had to do stuff for running cables and networking, getting where the TVs were going to be mounted so that we could see our screens, how many TVs. We do have the one in the treatment area, the one in the imaging area, and the one at the console, which has been very valuable. The installation and acceptance was basically done over 3 evenings from about 4 to 8 p.m. The actual engineer from VisionRT might have stayed longer. I dipped out about 8. He might have spent a little more time checking things with our physicists, but on the average, that was what we spent to get it installed. On site, the ClinApps team came in, 2 days of training. Joseph, Lauren, and Mary Elizabeth showed up for our first installation. I don't think I listed it, but on our second, we had Lauren out, and then another trip. Lauren was the other Lauren. 2 Laurens came out. So the 2 days of training. If you're getting the system, it's hard to evaluate how much training time you need. I can tell you that there is some challenges with having 16 therapists, and you only have a few therapists on each, room. So on our first installation, 4 or 5 therapists. How am I rotating them out to get them experience with the Clinac team, to get them up to speed, hands-on using it in a limited amount of time? So probably wish I had negotiated some additional training time so we could get more people hands-on training, and not do the old, like what you just, the see one, do one, teach one approach. So some of that is mitigated by the team coming back out to us a couple different times. So I could have called up immediately and said, hey, I want your next available training spot. Come back out and train more people. But leading into the second machine, we got that training, and it was mostly dedicated to the other room because that room is so different. Even imaging in that room in the machine is a little more difficult to work with in that position. But so the follow-up training, go live, you can schedule that 3 to 6 months post-install, whatever you feel like you need. But if you have a bigger center, depending on how many installations, how many rooms you put it in, I would just say a challenge for us was feeling like everybody was comfortable. And there's also a challenge with when you only have it in one room, how long was it after the training before somebody, we do a monthly rotation. So I have therapists that were 8 months out before they ever hit AlignRT, and they're like, oh, wow, I got trained on that, but I don't really remember much. So they really need some strong champions. I'm lucky to have a couple strong champions that'll talk next, and they have been consistent on that machine, training people just monthly. The gantry is our workhorse, and it's a grind. But they do a great job. During the follow-up training, we did talk about breath hold, which we didn't implement in the beginning. But they will tailor that to your needs and what you're doing. They reviewed our ROIs and all the different treatment sites, and they just wanted to make sure that we were comfortable treating everything that we were treating, so it was very helpful. We did take the deep dive into the ROI optimization and what we were doing with the challenges of the machine and the configuration of we still have, until we get the pencil beam, large apertures and compensators, blocking cameras, so needing to be unconventional from a photon world of how do we draw those ROIs and where do we put them, and what is the system telling us. Little overview from in 2024, we're very heavily prostate pelvis center. Those are fractions, so 2,900 fractions delivered to pelvis or prostate. Patients, 609 breast. Not patients, 609, but actual just fractions, daily fractions. GI, liver, breakdown. So that's the total number of fractions per treatment site. You'll see, jump into 2025, our breasts went up to 514. This is just for the first 3 months of the year. That's because we added it to that second machine, and that machine was very heavily loaded with breast. So, but we felt like that was going to be a big advantage for us, helping us to accurately set up those breasts because of our imaging. When you're just taking basically like a KV, you don't have your cone beam CT, you're quite challenged to want to feel comfortable that that's lined up, and looking at that anatomy at oblique angle sometimes is a real challenge. So the impact of daily operations, obviously in your documentation that's needed, your physician has to have an order. So if you're planning on getting SGRT, you need to already be thinking about what is that order going to have in it? How is that physician going to get it documented? You know, what's the process? What's that going to say? We have to have that documentation before we can charge for it. The daily SGRT report documentation, the therapists take care of that daily. They'll show you examples, or you've seen maybe some screenshots or other speakers talk about once the process is completed, there is an auto-generated report that is there and available for export. There is talks, I think, about moving that into some systems automatically. In the Proton world, we can't control our beam with VisionRT like they can on some Linacs. So the same thing holds true with some of the documentation, you know, and limitations of maybe what your EMR is or connectivity, you know, throughout your center. So the impact to our staff on a daily basis, obviously the physician has to add the SGRT order in his written prescription. The initial body contours have to be sent to AlignRT by the dosimetrist. The daily SGRT report I have automatically generated, so the system is working for us. You do have to configure that so that the report is representative of what you want to show your physicians, because if you don't, they'll come back like they did to me, like, what is this saying? I don't understand. Or it was captured at the wrong time, and this says the patient was out of alignment, you know. So understanding it's flexible, but yet, you know, how am I utilizing that, and what does that report say, so that you don't send mixed signals to your physicians for approval. For us, the SGRT report has to be exported from AlignRT and then imported into our EMR, which is Mosaic, and that's done by the therapist. We have to ensure that the SGRT is billed correctly with the appropriate modifiers. So they bill that out when they close the patient, but we found that if we're using code sets most of the time to capture a certain treatment area, and we grabbed the wrong code set, it didn't have SGRT, let me just add that on the fly today, then they forget the modifier. They did great about getting the code in, but they didn't put the modifier. So additional steps you may need to consider would be the time it takes to do your QA, which is relatively fast, but it is additive. To create an ROI for each patient in advance is preferred. We've had a few patients show up for their first day, and the therapists look up and they're like, not in the list. And they're like, where's this patient? And I'm like, what do you mean, where's the patient? And then we find out, well, the dosimetrist didn't even export it. So now we have two problems. We have to get dosimetry to export. Now we have to create an ROI, so it's just adding to our day and the length of time that that patient has to wait to get started. Capturing images during the treatment for documentation versus auto-generated. The system, like I say, can be set up so that it kind of just works on its own. And if that works for you, you can utilize the auto-generated images that it captures. We prefer to capture based on the limitations of our Proton system. In the case of the gantry, we have to take into account gantry sag anytime we rotate to a new position. And so that gantry sag causes a shift in the table. So now we would appear to be off anytime we move the gantry. So we have to capture new images. So we couldn't just continue with that first capture throughout, because every other treatment field would look like it was off. So understanding that and having that be a part of your process, will add some additional steps. I don't know if I figured it might be a question like, how do you get it in? I've been asked by people like, and we use Mosaic, we e-scan, so we create a PDF document and then we just re-e-scan that back into our system. So then the next question is, we have a variant and our physicians go to imaging to review. And so for us, it would be, you're going to review your images on the variant there, but if I had AlignRT, I might have to, go through e-scan to get it into Mosaic. So each, I think, center, depending on your EMR, your treatment machine, you could have a unique, situation. Probably not unfamiliar to the Vision RT people because they see lots of different setups. So are we getting reimbursed? If you've been in the Proton world, you know that reimbursement is always difficult. A lot of our patients, even we can't get approval for them to get treated. So they come to us, oh, my friend was treated and cured by you, and Proton is all I want. And we're like, your insurance won't pay for Proton therapy. And it's like just gut-wrenching, for them to think this is what I'm going to get and I'm going to be like my friend, and yet their insurance won't pay for it. But that's kind of a side note to, yes, it's still challenging to get reimbursed for SGRT sometimes, but sometimes it just means that your behind-the-scenes team need to send an appeal to say, hey, we have the documentation, and yes, it was ordered, and we're doing all the right things. If you're in the realm of understanding that, or your team working on that, then you won't have any problem. In 2024, the gantry, 12 months, we had about 4,088 fractions. Starting in October, room 3, we did 720 fractions. We had some rooms not assigned. I went back after I made this slide and sent it in, and I said, hey, billing team, like, what is this no room assigned? And so we figured out it was where that therapist went in and just added that SGRT charge because it wasn't in their code set. That charge did not have a room assigned, because in Mosaic you have to not only put in the SGRT code, put in the billing modifier and add the room and add the correct physician, and they just weren't adding the room. So we were getting everything else done, but they just weren't assigning a room to it. So when they got it in billing, they were like, well, this just wasn't assigned, to the room. So about 4,857 total fractions, 251 patients treated in 2024. In 2025, we're approaching half of what we did. I'll speak a little bit more about that. Again, the first system installed in January, second system in October. We are considering adding SIM-RT in the third or fourth quarter of this year. We have already talked to VisionRT about MapRT so that we can identify collisions, and we think that would be very beneficial for our machine. Just the thought of rotating our gantry around the patient, even though some of the therapists have been on a LINAC, they're like, there's no way we could never do that. But I think if we had the MapRT, it would give us the confidence that, the system says it will clear. We'll check. So in 2024, of the 625 total patients that we treated, 38% of the patients utilized SGRT, and those patients had an average of 19 fractions apiece. In 2025, through April, we had treated 214 patients with utilizing SGRT, and 70% of those patients had SGRT treatment. But the fractions went down. The average fractions per patient was 14. And when I looked at the breast cases, we had partial breast, more SBRTs, so that caused the fewer number of fractions, and it looks like, now we're utilizing it on more patients. But it was more patients, just with fewer fractions per patient. Reimbursement is good overall. 80% of our claims have been paid that we've sent in. You will need to appeal those claims, some of them. Different carriers. We have, I don't know exactly, I could find out, but probably a couple that don't pay at all. We're not paying. And we think we have a pretty good appeals process. Our next steps, which kind of has already really happened, is introducing open face masks. We do utilize the Boss frame like they do, and it's all of its challenges, but it's got to be physician supported. And so now we bought them, and then we didn't do anything, and now we have physicians, and they'll come down and say, hey, I want an open face mask, and we're like, oh, okay, here we go. So we still treat people with a closed face mask. If a physician doesn't order it, I can't use it. I could use it, but if he just doesn't feel it's going to be beneficial, then, breath hold. We've done a few livers and lungs and breast with breath hold. I think, again, it's getting your whole team on board. Do the physicians want to do it? Do they see the benefit? Does physics have time to make sure that your processes are in place and everybody's on board? And then do your staff, your therapists, understand the processes and make sure that we're, being consistent using those? VisionRT helped us. Excuse me? Gating. No. Our system will not auto-gate even with VisionRT as a part of a limitation of IBA's software. So they are looking at that communication between IBA and VisionRT. So we're hoping that it's just, I think with the Proteus 1, you can get it. So the newer machines, our machine is too old, so the software version that we're on, so we're trying to say, how far can we roll up in the software to make that work? So right now, gating would be a manual process for us. Therapists would notice, hey, you're out of tolerance. They would have to manually pause the beam. Okay, they're back in tolerance, and we've done that.